God has been a source of my pain and agony, and also my greatest source of strength. The fact that I'm even sitting here in front of you today.
We have Jayna Rylee here, but we can just keep talking.
Sure.
Yeah, she's here. She's a homie.
What's up?
Yeah, she's a sober gal. She's a lot of things.
Sober gal
Fitness
today.
Model. She's a lot of stuff.
Retired, I think.
No, she may not. She may be doing it still. She looks great. But let's pull a card. She brought some cards out. She brought like props. So we're just gonna like not try to segue into them. We're just gonna pull them and let's see what they talk about. Then maybe we'll have a stream of consciousness from the cards. So let's go.
I think so too. So these cards, I usually pick, I have a few decks of cards and I use them as part of my affirmations every morning when I get spiritual. And so these are my absolute favorite. One of the closest people to me pulls these cards every day. And the first time I pulled them on her deck, I was like, what are they? I need to get those. So I thought it'd be fun. I've already pulled my card today, but I wanted Eric to pull one. So, dun, dun, dun. As you can tell, I'm not a pro at this.
Yeah, it's okay.
I don't do this for a living. Okay. So, whatever card speaks to you.
How do you know?
Ooh.
Read it to me.
That's a good card. Okay, the fire card. The
Fire card.
I'm so not surprised you picked this card.
Yeah.
Okay, so the fire card, the buzzwords are transmutation and purification. Those are the concepts here. So fire is the bringer of transmutation. It's time to come out of your cocoon and allow yourself to become that beautiful butterfly. Have courage, burn off the old, allowing the new to enter. You know what needs to be done. It is time to light that inner fire or the one under your seat. Get busy and take steps to allow this wonderful change to occur. The courage during this time of transition. Know that all is well. Fire also represents purification. In every transformation, a cleansing process takes place. Perhaps it's time to purify your thoughts, actions, relationships, or something else that has become unhealthy. Transmute your old habits.
Boom. It always goes to sex for me. It always goes to like relationships and sex, because everything else in my life, I'm like lit up and on fire and like exceeding and excelling at. My professional life is growing rapidly. My friends and my recovery is cool. Like all those things are good. The only transition in my life that's happening is the relationship is in this weird place where it's over and not over at the same time.
There's some additional meanings here.
Okay, read it.
It says, oh, I like this one. You need some independence right now.
Okay.
Take a break from routine.
Okay.
Take care of your home and hearth. Stand in protection of something or someone. Perform a ceremony or rite would be perfect right now.
Okay.
So I'm going to give you this card so you can have it. And then I have one more surprise.
Okay, one more surprise. We've never started it this way, so this is good.
So good. I don't want to be like everybody else.
Okay. You bring me a present?
Yes, I did. There's some meaning behind that, and I will explain.
Okay. Get out. My big hand's not gonna fit in that bag. Okay. Shout out to Mythos.
Yes, La Jolla, local.
Did you bring me a crystal? You sure did. What is it?
Okay, so when I buy crystals for my friends, I go in knowing that whichever one jumps at me first and catches my attention, that's the one. This was the first one I touched, and I almost put it back because I thought, oh, maybe the heart is it's too girly. And then I thought, oh my God, the name of his podcast is Hearts Over Everything.
Oh
so God. I'm like, this is totally his like, look how pretty that is.
It's
And so what it is, and I've never heard of it before, and I feel like this was created for you. So it's called Shungite, and it's a grounding stone known as it's a mineraloid, not a crystal.
Okay.
And a mineraloid is amber, opal, or obsidian, something like that. It's technically not a crystal, and for centuries, Shungite has been considered a stone for healing. It's made up of 50 to 90% carbon, and it's extremely grounding and believed to help shield you from electromagnetic frequencies, like 5G. Just kidding.
Here we go.
It's high vibration, helps to bring your spiritual body down to the physical plane. Shungite encourages you to learn more, do more, push on to the next spiritual breakthrough, and brings light during times of darkness or uncertainty.
Beautiful.
Is that not you?
Yeah.
In a stone?
Yeah.
Like, God. Anyway,
Let's ask, do you believe in God?
I do believe in God.
What has been the evolution of, let's just go into it.
Are you even ready for this? How far back do you want to go?
No, but this is, I think if we can just talk about God this whole podcast.
I would love that, because God has been a source of my pain and agony, and also my greatest source of strength. The fact that I'm even sitting here in front of you today, the person that I am today is the most spiritual version of myself I've ever been. And I grew up, so let's just back it all the way up. I told him my birth date, but I will not be telling the audience. Wasn't it 1999 that I said?
1995.
So 2 years before I was born, my parents, who met at Indiana University on the East Coast, they both grew up on the East Coast. They were in communications. My dad, my mom was in television, dad was in radio. My dad would do the sports and my mom would do the news. And they met on campus. You know, my dad would like wait around for my mom's show to finish. And that's just how they got to know each other. I'm going to add one more thing because I'm going to come around it later. My dad was also a left-handed pitcher for the Hoosiers. And baseball is a huge part of my life, and I can get to that and why. So
you don't have to get into baseball. I don't care about baseball at all, Jayna.
But I think you might understand my appreciation for it.
I'll hear about your
I'll find a way to weave it in.
I know you will.
I'm going to find a way to weave it in because it is part of my story. So 2 years before I was born, my parents moved across country. They got married in Pittsburgh in a blizzard because my dad had to push up the wedding 6 months. And then my dad drove out to Southern California. My mom finished school and then she came out. And my dad's goal was to start a contemporary Christian radio station. So with a board and support, they started a contemporary Christian music station. And I was born into radio. My dad was a general manager and a DJ, and my mom was the music director and a DJ. And I just remember at a young age, I was sitting at rock concerts, falling asleep in the front row. I was going to festivals when I was like a little girl. Yeah. And for those of you who grew up with contemporary Christian radio, there's a festival called Superfest. And anybody who knows, like that was the place to be. And so, I just grew up around music. I mean, music was just everything. And, but there was also religion. And when I first, I grew up in the church. I was in the church for 18 years of my life.
What kind of church? It's so interesting.
Oh, I've been in Baptist churches. I've been in non-denominational churches. But my first church was Faith Baptist Church was that one in Ucaipa? I don't remember.
Let me ask you.
Yeah.
Biggest takeaway positive and biggest takeaway negative.
You're shortening my story.
No.
So, you know what? Here's the thing. I had to have a huge perception change.
You're shortening my story.
To be able to speak the way I do today, because I had the biggest resentment towards my parents when I got made fun of when I was younger because my parents were in Christian radio. And I was like, you know what? Fuck you guys. You guys wrote my reputation for me before I could even have anything to do with it. And that was probably one of the biggest hurdles I've had to deal with in my entire life, because I just fueled that resentment like it was my job. And I would do anything and everything to rebel against anything related to the Christian religion. I thought it was cool my parents were in radio. I thought it was cool that I was going to all these shows. I thought it was cool that I was meeting the band and meeting all the artists. And, that part was cool. But the only thing they did wrong is it wasn't like the Kiss FM or the Power 106.
What's the converse of a Christian? What was the rebellion? What did the rebellion look like? And please be.
Because I cared too much of what other people thought.
But okay. So when I'm picturing little Jayna in the church, 13-year-old Jayna, praying, praise Jesus, doing the church thing. I'm picturing it, but then I'm picturing Jayna being like, "Fuck this church, man! Boo-boo. What are you doing? What are behaviors? What is the acting out? How is it manifesting? And don't say face, Jayna."
By the time we moved to Yucaipa, Calamasa, I was going to a church in Yucaipa. And right next door was a Del Taco to the church. So I would cruise in with the folks and then go out the side door and go hang out at Del Taco and pretend I was in church. Like I just didn't want to have anything to do with the church because I was so affected in school by my peers, by anybody that knew what my parents did for a living. I would get made fun of for being the Christian girl. And I'm like, I'm not even the Christian girl. Like, why do you have to keep giving me this reputation? Yeah. And because of that, I just pushed back. I made everything was dramatic. What was
the pushback though? I'm drawing.
What was the pushback?
What did the pushback look like?
I wanted the freedom to be able to have my own spirituality. And as a young girl, I knew there was a God. I've always had this idea of God being this bright light, almost like the sun. I had an experience when I was younger where I felt like, oh yeah, there's a God and there's a spiritual essence about this like big ball of energy. But church isn't fun. Church isn't fun. I don't want to go Wednesdays and I don't want to go Sundays. It's cutting into my me time basically as a kid. And we can't swear and we can't watch like PG-13 movies. And I'm like, what's with all the fucking restrictions? Like that's where, I just had to be this cookie cutter Christian girl and then be concerned about anything that I ever did in my life because my parents had a ministry, the radio station, and I just never felt free to just explore and experience and be who I was. Yes, it confined me. That's a great word. And, today I can look back and look at my parents and not have that resentment anymore. Like I did the work around that to be able to get on the other side of it. And now I just have the utmost respect for them because they've been in radio for 42 years and they've never deviated from their faith. They've never deviated from the plan. And I have so much respect for that. Just to be able to dedicate your entire life to a cause and not deviate is admirable. So that's how I see my parents now. Yeah. But those are the lessons that I had to learn, pushing back. And it taught me, I just got really, really good at acting when I was younger because I didn't want my free time to be affected. So I would save face with the parents by dressing up for church and doing the deal. And when I wasn't doing that, I would sneak away and just be the person that I wanted to be. Or I would
Who did you want to be? I'm genuinely curious. So we're talking about this person who would sneak away. You didn't want to be church girl. Who did you want to be? Who were you? Who were you when nobody was looking?
I honestly wanted to spend my entire life being a recording artist and being a singer and working towards that.
And who did you hang out with?
I was in the choir.
You were in the choir?
Oh, yeah. The high school for me was all music.
Were you a cheerleader too?
I tried that for 1 year. Okay. And then I was on to the next thing. Like that was super fun. Like I have no problem being the center of attention or being in the middle of fun or, even being a cheerleader for any cause. Like I feel like we need that, we need that support. But I also played sports. So I played softball and I played soccer. Soccer is my favorite sport of all time. Baseball, I love because of the formula. And
Go ahead.
I was raised on baseball. Like I went to my first Dodger game with my father, who's a huge, like probably the biggest Dodger fan out there. And I loved his fire for the Dodgers. And so I became a Dodger fan. And I think I went to my first game when I was 2 years old. And my dad said, when we were leaving the game, that was the first time you like actually had an expressive thought. And he said that I looked at him and I was like, Jayna, happy. Because I was at the Dodger game and nothing's changed. Like it's literally one of my favorite things on planet Earth. And the people that are closest to me are probably glazing over. Like, I can't believe we're talking about this again. But what I love about baseball, and I'm glad that I learned exactly what it took to play, but also the complexity behind it. And it forces patience, which is not one of my strong suits. I think it requires marathon patience to understand the game, the strategy, and why it takes so long to accomplish it, and how many players are needed to be able to execute a game, and then statistics, and just creating that longevity and being a player that can excel and then and have that longevity and become better. And I love that about baseball. Not a lot of people have the patience for the game, but I think if you've played it, you understand what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
And I'm not knocking you
I
for
grew
not
up playing
liking baseball.
baseball.
Okay, so you
I played
understand what I
baseball all the way up
mean.
to high school. Yeah.
Yeah.
I played baseball a lot. I don't like team sports.
Okay.
I don't like football. I don't like basketball. No, it's just not my jam. You know, I don't knock you for it. I just like to fuck around because I know.
Okay,
you like
good.
baseball.
Okay,
then
good.
It's like,
So it's a banter.
It's just a banter. It's just fucking around. But my original question is: biggest takeaway from the church, biggest harm from the church, and do you believe in God? You said yes. But so two biggest takeaways from the church.
Biggest harm for me was, I feel bad saying that I was brainwashed, but for a while there, I didn't know any better, and I took it on like it was the word of God.
Yeah, it was. Someone told you it was.
If you don't ask Christ into your heart,
You're going to hell.
you're going to hell.
Yeah.
And even though I didn't really believe it,
Did you project that?
projected it a little bit until I knew
Did
that.
you like think your friends? Did you like think your friends were going to hell? Were you like, I'll be friends with you?
No, I
gonna
really
go to
didn't feel that way. But I saw how other people that I really cared about who were of other religions felt about that belief. Like my best friend in high school, Ethan, he's Jewish, and he would always make fun of me. And he was like, you think I'm going to hell? I said, I don't think you're going to hell. He's like, because I just don't believe that. He's like, you think I'm going to hell? And again, that was just another one of those things that bubbled up for me. Like, why can't I just shake this reputation? You know, there's nothing wrong with the Christian faith. I just want to find my own spiritual path. And it's not in a church.
Yeah.
I don't find God in church. So that's my takeaway. I didn't like that we were preaching that.
Yeah.
And I don't like the restrictions. I understand that there's commandments and just a moral way of living, but we're human beings. We're going to make mistakes.
Yeah.
We are totally going to fuck up. I don't think that somebody's moral personality should be judged. I mean, I'm kind of a relativist, to be quite honest with you. I feel like people come from different places and backgrounds, and not everybody can be judged the same or categorized, you know, in the same way. Mm-hmm.
So you said something interesting. You said, and let me preface this by saying, over the past 7 years, I've been in and out of the church, active member of the church, lunch with pastors, you know, recorded like content with pastors, you know, had spiritual guidance from pastors, church 4 days a week, Wednesday, Friday for Celebrate Recovery, Saturday service at one church, Sunday service at another church. Full-time job. So and I'm not a Christian at all. And I've had Christian pastors be like, hey, you know, like we believe that like Jesus is the one true God. I'm like, yeah, I know you believe that, but like I'm not. And they were like, I was like, you think I'm going to hell? And they were like, yeah, kind of. You know, kind of. Because that's what they believe.
hate that answer. Every time I've hated it.
But it's, so you said something that there's nothing wrong with the Christian church. And that is, I think, a fallacy coming from someone who has participated in the Christian church. But I think this is just an opportunity to make a point about the church. The tenets of Jesus are not a problem. What Jesus was about, Jesus is a hero, right?
Yeah, and I agree with that.
Amazing. Jesus had 2 commandments: love your neighbor like you love yourself, and love God with all your heart. Those are the 2 commandments of Jesus. That's what he was about, man. And he was about the people from the bottom. He was for people like me, homeless people, drug addicts, and the prostitutes. So he was. So it's not the concept of Jesus that people have a problem with. It is the structure of the church, and the church is made up of the people, and it's the same thing with any institution. It's not the institution in itself. It's the people who make up the institution that'll taint a whole entire experience and brainwash people within the church, or within the political system, or within 12-step. You know, like people say, oh, I don't do 12-step. It's not 12-step that you have a problem with. It's the shitty people in 12-step that are turning you off. The principles of this thing are pretty straightforward. It's like straightforward, pretty chill. So I just wanted to say that it's not the fun, like that the church is fundamentally wrong. It's the people that affect the church. It sounds like people lumped you into the institution. And that
at an early age. And I felt like I was pushing back at an early age. And what that would turn into was, and I still owe an amends for this, was it Faith Bible Church? It doesn't matter. The church I went to in San Bernardino, they had just remodeled the bathrooms in the men's and women's bathrooms. And I noticed it when I walked in. And while the church service was going on, I ripped everything down and fucking vandalized the entire, and then never said anything about it, went and sat in the pew and went on with my day. And then a few weeks later, I'm sitting in church service with my parents, and they mentioned something from the pulpit, and they said, look, if you know anything, somebody vandalized our bathroom. And I just started laughing. That's just where I was at. I feel like I have one on you, but that's not the person that I am. You know, deep down inside, I know who I am.
And if that's the worst thing you did
in the church, I also stole a fish from Sunday school because I wanted it. And then I told my parents that I found it in a puddle outside, and they totally believed me. So that's on them. And then
you're a pretty good person. I did some awful things. You're chilling. Don't worry about it. You're going to heaven.
I was really young.
I'm not going to heaven. You're going.
No, we're all going to heaven.
Fish.
We're all going to heaven.
So let's talk. So I introduced you as, there's 2 things that we could talk about.
Okay.
And I'll let you choose which direction we're going to go down right now. We're going to go down both directions, but which one we're going down now? Fitness industry or recovery?
I can talk about both.
So where do you want to go first?
Well, the 2 are intertwined for me.
So let's go recovery first.
Okay.
And let me just tell you, don't gloss over. Don't gloss over.
How much time do we have?
Look, but here, and let's focus on the optics. Beautiful blonde hair, brilliant. All the outside stuff, right? All the shiny outside stuff that anybody could want, but somehow you drank until you wanted to die. For some reason, you're in rooms that I'm in, and if you're in a room like I'm in, you drink until you want to die, or you drink until you're gonna die. So how does a woman with all of this, looking like this, being like this, end up in a room with a guy like me? How does that happen?
Who looks like you?
This is after years of working on it.
But
let's talk about it. Let's talk about and don't gloss over it, because some people say they don't want to. I've had another woman on here, Christian woman, like everything's prim and proper, and she didn't want to talk about the dark parts because she's saving her face. You know, she's like, I don't want people to know that I was like that. But let me tell you, the power of telling people where you come from, and so they can see where you are now. That's why, like, when you tell your story, like, you know, when I tell my story in recovery, I always say how dark it was for a couple minutes, because it provides a frame of reference. So with that being said, let's talk about your drinking. Let's talk about how you ended up around a person like me.
Okay.
And don't gloss over anything. And
won't
I'm going to shut the
gloss
fuck up
over
and
it.
move the mic away.
Well, first of all, I am, nothing's off the table for me. I always talk about my recovery, and in fitness, in my about page on my website, I tell my story.
Okay.
So I'm not afraid to talk about this because it's shaped who I am today. When I was younger, I grew up in sports. Like, my family didn't have a lot of money, and we did what we could to get by. And my parents, even though they, like, the radio station sounds pretty high profile, and it was also a listener supported nonprofit station. And so we weren't rolling in it. And I just remember we would play outside, we'd play sports. We would, like, I have twin brothers and they're pretty fucking talented. And I just remember I always loved playing with my brothers and their friends. Like, it's just what I did. I liked hanging with the boys. And I played sports all through high school. And I would say I was kind of the weirdo. Number one, because I already felt like I had the outcast, and the fact that we didn't have a lot of money. I don't think I was never the prettiest girl. I was never the funniest girl, but I could probably outrun you, probably do more pull-ups than you, girl or guy. And I could probably put together a better outfit than you. Like, those were my strengths, right? And so
You can put together a fantastic outfit.
thank you. I call it creative expression.
yeah,
it's an opportunity every day to have a creative expression.
Hey, that's my jam too.
Right? And I don't like wearing the same thing twice, not because I'm afraid to, but because I feel like I can do better. You know?
I love it.
Even though I wore this shirt the other day, but I'm wearing different pants.
I understand. It's a completely different outfit.
Completely different outfit. Okay. So let's get back to that. So I played sports, and that was really something I excelled at. And I found my identity in that, or in singing. So in high school, if it wasn't for the sports and it wasn't for the choirs I was in a few different choirs, I don't know if I could have made it. I was never really an academic, not because I don't love being intellectual. I have ADHD, and it was really hard for me to focus. And if you weren't talking about something I was interested in, I'm somewhere else. And I felt like I needed to give you that context. So fast forward to the choir groups. No, I'm going to take it back. I was in drama also. And when you're in drama, everybody knows you smoke cigarettes, right? And I fell in love with cigarettes. Oh my God, there was something about it. The only time I ever feel like I have a free thought is when I'm having a cigarette. You know what I'm talking about? Still. I mean, I don't smoke regularly. Like now I vape.
We've shared a cigarette. It's okay.
But I love it. I have this romantic relationship with cigarettes. So I just had a taste of a cigarette. Sorry, whatever. I'm trying to go through the timeline in my head. And I would say by the time I was 14, I was in a music group, a vocal jazz group, and we got really close. And one of our friends, Stephen Carlson, had parents with a banging pad, right? So I just remember my first drunk was at his house, because I walk in. My parents don't drink, by the way. We didn't have alcohol in the home. So it just wasn't around me. So anytime I got around it, I was like,
let's go.
Give me everything. So I'm walking around this huge kitchen, and every kind of booze you can imagine. I look over at the bar and I'm like, bottles, bottles, bottles. And I made that decision right there. I'm like, I'm going to try one of everything. And I did. And then at the end of the night, there I am at the top of his I think stairs in his sister's room with snow white carpet. And I threw up black. Nice. It was black. That's awesome. And that was my nickname, Blackness, for the rest of high school because of that one experience. And I look back on it now and I'm like, oh my God, I couldn't wait to do it again.
Yeah.
I couldn't wait to not feel. Like I just stopped thinking, like overthinking, until I blacked out, obviously. But I just remember I would always chase that first and second drink. There's something about that first and second drink. I feel like I can be me. I'm not thinking about what I'm saying as it's coming out of my mouth. I think I'm funnier. I think I look better. I think, you're more entertaining, and let's party, let's have fun, let's dance, let's not think. And it was always about the thinking for me, because I feel like I was never present, just even sober. I was always somewhere else, or like on to the next thing. And that's really something that I've been practicing in recovery, is just like where I am in the present moment, I'm already somewhere. Like that is where I'm supposed to be. That's the somewhere. And so yeah, fast forward, I just became the party girl. And I felt like I drank so much on the weekends, and then it turned into drinking by myself. I have no problem drinking by myself. Bring it on. I love drinking by myself. Yeah. I created this really high tolerance so I could drink all the time.
Yeah.
And
you got a lot done.
I got a lot done. And then I'm trying to fast forward so this story doesn't last forever. I would say when shit hit the fan for me was probably 2008, 2009. I had finally moved into my first place by myself, and we called it Club Jayna. So it was, the party never stopped. And then I met this guy in that complex who was basically my match with drinking and using. And so the two of us went on this. I mean, the only thing I can think of is like Amy Winehouse and her lover. Like it was so dark, ugly, destructive, abusive, toxic, but we were so in love. And
don't you love those? I love those.
I learned so much, but it took me a really long time to be able to feel that way.
Those are like my favorite.
Oh my God. I mean, it was 7 years.
Yeah.
7 years, 3 kids involved. I don't have kids of my own, but when we met, he was just leaving a marriage. He had a 3-year-old and he had a 12-year-old and 13-year-old. And I'm still friends with the 12 and 13-year-old to this day. They're now in their 20s and they're adults, and it's just 20s. So cool to see who they've evolved into. But you know what? God, they deserve the woman that I am today. They deserved it then when they were going through it. And the little one I don't have a relationship with, but you know.
So shit hit the fan in 2008, 2009.
And you know what was so funny and ironic about that relationship is the first week of knowing him, he's like, have you ever considered yourself to be an alcoholic? And my response was, yeah, I'm an alcoholic, but I would never go to AA because AA is for quitters and I'm not a quitter. Well, let's get on with the party. And it took 5 years before I realized he's my Eskimo. He had 13 years in the program, but decided to go back out. And so my first experience with Alcoholics Anonymous was you go until you graduate, or you go until you figure out how to drink like a normal person. And so it was really confusing for me. But I got into the rooms and I got about 90 days on my first run through, but I could not do the God thing. I really struggled with God. I had this, what's the word? Prejudice against the idea of God with a capital G. I just felt like we're doing this again. Enough with the Jesus. And how unfortunate for Jesus that I think that, because I do think he's a great dude, but I just have associated all of that with my childhood. And I'm like, I thought we were past this. You know, I am a spiritual woman. I find spirituality at the rave with the underground DJ on a rolling on E with the music. That's my spiritual experience. Let me have that. Like, that's what I want. And, you know, I did a lot of that. And I worked jobs that I hated so that I can party whenever I wanted to. And I hung out with people who co-signed that shit and who partied with me. And
what kind of jobs did you work? What industry was Jayna?
I feel like I've done everything.
I don't know.
My first real job, I worked for in a family law office in San Luis Obispo, and I learned so much. Number one, I said I was never going to get married or have kids because of that experience. I saw it all. I saw it all. I saw how ugly it was. But at the same time, I loved it because I was watching like Law and Order marathons any chance I got. Like I was just going to be the lawyer. You know what I mean? And I'm Libra, so that only makes sense.
Of course.
Duh.
Right, Matt? Of course. She's a Libra. It
only makes sense. Fair and justice is always balancing. But with my experience with academics, there's absolutely no fucking way that I could have gone through law school or even passed the test because I just can't take tests.
Yeah.
I can't believe I got into the schools that I did. But anyway, that's besides the point. That's where talent comes in. I got into Cal Poly San Luis Obispo because of my singing voice, and I went into the music department, and they let me in with the shittiest SAT scores I think anyone at the school had.
Yeah.
And then where was I going with this? I've already lost my train of thought. Bring me back.
I'll bring it back. Here's where we were. Your first time in AA, you got 90 days.
Oh, geez. We went off
went
off the reservation.
We're over there. Now
and
we're
took
back.
A trolley to the next reservation.
Yeah, so now we're back.
Jeez
90
Louise.
days.
You're going to have to edit the shit out of this, huh?
No, we don't edit any of it.
Oh, cool. Okay, so my first 90 days, I remember, like, this feels good. It feels good to be clean. It feels good to have a brain. I loved my sponsor. I mean, he was just my ride or die, my spiritual guide. He had 7 months at the time. I met him in which meeting did I meet him in? Oh God, I met my sponsor. He was serving me drinks. That's another story because it's going to take me a while to tell that one. But just the way God works is just so miraculous. The attraction, not promotion piece of Alcoholics Anonymous is truly the deal. And especially for somebody like me, if my parents said you need it, and my dad did email me once and say you need AA, and I was like, no, let me make this decision. I was so attracted to the spiritual vibrations that my friend had when I met him in the restaurant that I needed to know what he was doing. I just needed to know more. And when I found out it was AA, I was like, okay. I mean, I would have rolled down a hill naked if I could have what he had. You know, that's just where I was at. I was super broken. I had self-esteem was not even something that I had anymore. And in the first 90 days, I stayed in the relationship. And that was the one thing that always got in my way because I was the only one dealing with my alcoholism. And now 90 days in, I'm with an untreated alcoholic and I'm fantasizing the idea of MDMA. And I knew that if I told him that I wanted to get high, that he would agree to it, even though he loved that I was sober.
Can I put the brakes on this really quick?
Yeah.
Do you believe in predetermination? Do you think that would have happened? That was going to happen in the simulation that we're in the million times and infinite times that this situation is happening, this conversation is happening. Do you think that would have happened anyway? You would have got back in that relationship and stayed. And if like the concept of life being predetermined, do you think the life that you're living now is the life that you're supposed to be living? Absolutely,
100%. I had to have that experience because it was my first experience of me knowing what I knew about AA, understanding the steps, understanding the concepts, understanding the spiritual side, and making that decision that I was going to do my version of it because I'm so self-reliant and I'm so self-centered that no matter what, I will always get myself through whatever I'm going through. And so I feel like I was just going to go out for the weekend and then come back in. Mm-hmm. And I did that. I would go out. I would get about 90 days and I would go out and then I would come back in and then I would go to meetings. I got sober in Hollywood and I would go to so many meetings and I would sit in the back and I wouldn't get to know anyone and there was no fellowship that I was involved in. And that's how I did it. You know, I went in and out and nobody cared because nobody knew me.
Yeah.
And the only person I really cared about was my sponsor and my boyfriend. And that was it. And without realizing it, they were both my higher power. Mm-hmm. And, God, I just remember it being so confusing because I I was so under the pile spiritually that even though I was saying the word God and I said I was doing step 2 and 3, I was just saying the words. I wasn't doing the action.
Yeah. Do you know what I'm hearing? I'm thinking like, okay, so every podcast I do, there's like a main idea, right? Like everyone's is different, you know. Sometimes they're the same, sometimes they're not, you know. But what I'm hearing here, I'm like, okay, how do we frame this? And it sounds like you never quit. It sounds like you never quit because you're here now. And this is in 2008 and 2009. That
2013.
2013. This is in 2013. That's the year I got sober. That's 8 years ago. And you're still here.
Yeah.
So do you think that drive is just that type A Jayna thing that I know that you have?
Yes. I've been this way since I was a kid. I was going to find my way through no matter what, even if I had to fuck you over, sneak, be somebody that I wasn't. If I had my mindset on something, I'm going to figure it out. That's just who I am. I'm self-reliant.
Would you consider that? Actually, you know what? I did a whole podcast. Like a lot of my liabilities are my greatest assets.
Yeah.
A lot of them, almost all of them. Like my mania, my fucking psycho, like my extra, being eccentric, just like being a talker, being a manipulator, being a, you know, those things that are the greatest detriment to the people around me and to myself are the things that make me a good businessman.
Yeah.
They're the things that make me a good communicator. It makes it so I can do this on the microphone. So it makes it so I believe in myself to do it. So that drive that probably got you in a lot of trouble, that self-reliance, as our literature talks about, that gets us in trouble all the time, is the same thing that got you here to where you are today. Isn't that crazy?
It's crazy, but I needed it. I needed that my ego to come shining through every single time because I wouldn't have learned any other way, because the way that it was painful for me was on the emotional level. Like, I do not think I would have ever gotten sober with a DUI, and I could have had 2 of them. I got out of it. I don't think going through the process of that would have ever really kept me in the rooms. You have to take away my lover. You have to take away, it has to be just like that. Guttural, that's the word. I mean, it has to be that kind of a loss for me to make any kind of change. And I think the one thing that always came up for me, even when I was a little girl, I always had to hustle for my worthiness. I always had something to prove. And so when I'm working from an ego place, a place of ego, and I'm working from a self-reliant place, that's not going to come out really pretty, but I'm going to dress it up and hope that you like me, or hope that you like what I'm doing, or God, I just always had to be the best no matter what I did. And
do you still feel like you need to be the best?
Not today. And that's one of the miracles, you know? And so when I mean, even with drinking, like I would drink some of my guy friends under the table, and that was like a badge of honor. Pride, like that's something to be proud of. And God, when I'm in my disease and I'm drinking hard every day or using drugs, I am physically not the same person. I age like 5 to 10 years. I look puffy. I have to go get all new clothes because nothing fits. And I just keep pouring on top of it because I'm drowning in my own shit. You know what I mean? So yeah, I played that game of in and out, in and out, in and out, in and out for 3 years. I never did a 4th step. I did 1, 2, 3 over again. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3.
4, 9 get people.
Yeah. And you know what? I ended up.
Why do you think that is, really quick? Why do you think 4 and 9? I have some theories on why 4 and 9. Yeah. But
4,
what do you think it is?
Why
4 takes people
it takes people out?
I don't think it takes people. I don't think it takes.
They haven't done a thorough 2.
Yeah.
Or this is just my theory. They haven't done a thorough 2 and 3.
Yeah.
That was my problem.
You want to know my theory?
That's not one that I want to admit, but that was my problem. Go ahead.
My theory is, for the first time in our entire lives, we have to take responsibility for ourselves. It was everybody else's fault up until that point.
Oh, yeah.
It was in your case, from what I'm perceiving, it was the church's fault. It was the kids in school's fault. It was this for me. It was black people. It was black people who didn't accept me. White people didn't accept me. My friends made fun of my sexuality. Girls didn't like me. I was too fat. My mom, my dad, everybody, I blamed everybody else. And I did that well into my sobriety, by the way. And then the first time I did an honest 4-step, and people think like, oh, I get to write about who I'm mad at. No, what you get to do is look at you people you're mad at and look what the fuck you did.
Right.
And it's the first time we take personal responsibility for ourselves. And through getting sober, 2 things I've gathered in my recovery that are the most important most important lessons I've learned in my entire life. Personal responsibility and humility. It's riddled all throughout that's what we're doing. It's humbling ourselves and taking responsibility for ourselves. So that's my theory on why people go out, because it's the first time ever that you have to take a look at yourself and own your shit and not blame the world around you. And I did a whole podcast called It's Not the World, It's You. The world is not my problem. Like when Donald Trump was president, when this was happening, when that was happening, it's not the world, man. My center needs to be right. When I'm right here and I'm right here, the world is fine. The world is perfectly fine. I have a disease of perception. When those glasses are clean, the world is not a problem. But that's my theory.
You know what? I struggled with everything that went on in 2020, and I went against my own grain. My social media presence had everything to do with fitness and how to better yourself from the inside out. And in a sense, it was my blog, because I really was thoughtful about my captions for each of my posts. And that's actually what fueled most of what I was doing. Is I needed to understand every day the reason behind what I was posting and what I'm representing. And I would never bring politics or organized anything. I wouldn't even say Alcoholics Anonymous. I wouldn't even bring that into my fitness persona until 2020. And it came up for me. And I was getting sicker. That the ego, I was closer to my ego and further away from God. And I made a mess, just having to be right and having to be like, these are the things that I strongly believe. And this is so wrong. And like, what's going on with this country? And like, you guys preach unity, but like, this is not unity. This is like the United Divided States of America. That is what it feels like. And I would get on my soapbox and like purposely push back on things that I had no business talking about really on a platform that I built for fitness and inspiration and motivation. I didn't bring it up to talk about politics. Well, it's supposed to be talked about.
It's supposed to be talked about.
Because you said something that made me think of something that I did want to say.
Okay. I'm going to let you say it. That was the interesting thing about those last 4 years, is that it transformed people it took people out of their character, or brought people to the character, a shadow character of themselves, that it brought you from the inspirational, motivational, like health and wellness person into a darker shadow version, believing it was the right thing to do. It was well intentioned. My in-laws, my ex-in-laws, like I don't know what the fuck you call it, avid Donald Trump supporters, and they taught me to love. I think you and I had this conversation in Hennessy's. They taught me to love people even if they don't agree with me. We could fundamentally disagree, but it was such a polarizing time, and it still is. It's just quieter. But it's such a polarizing time. It brought people into a place that we weren't proud of. It brought me to a place. There were so many podcasts that we just wasted talking shit about Donald Trump. It was just wasted dead air. It's like, why would anybody want to listen to this shit? And I'm so grateful that I don't even want to talk about politics ever the fuck again. You know what I mean? Like it brought out so much negativity in people, and it brought it out, and it didn't even make me dislike people. Like when you and I spoke, it didn't make me think anything different of you.
And
it was just a point of contention, an unnecessary like fog in the middle that just shouldn't be there.
Right.
You know what I mean? It's just so like because what I mean?
It was like
it was waste.
It just came up, and it was what it was. And after feeling a lot of pain, after vomiting all over the internet, and I'm not saying that what I said was wrong.
What did you say?
What I'm saying is that for a platform that I built, it was in the wrong place. You know,
it wasn't the forum for it.
It wasn't the forum. I'm not running for office. I am also not on a grand jury, and I am also not the spokesperson for a political party. So
I feel that.
That is where I had to really take a strong look at that. And it brought me so close to my ego, and my ego is the worst version of me. And that's not who I'm trying to be today. So I really just had to take a good look at all of it and understand that I am not the world. I am me.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to be afraid or threatened by anything that has nothing to do with me. Yeah. And once I accepted that thought, then I could go on and just accept whatever. Like I'm not going to push somebody away because they have a different belief system than me because of what I went through as a kid. I had to go through that.
Yeah.
I had to go through people making fun of me or just making me feel small because of things that were out of my control or because of things that I chose to do or how I wore my hair or like what clothes I had on or what I wasn't wearing or like, you know what I mean?
You know, we get to be a reflection of our value system. Mm-hmm. So if I have conservative values, right? I don't, in some ways I do, but if I do, I can be a reflection of healthy conservative values, not be racist. I'm not talking about being racist. If you're racist, then you're racist. That's not conservatism. Conservatism and racism are not equal.
No, they're not.
They're not the same thing.
No, they're not.
But like if you're conservative, if you believe in family values, if you believe in supporting the military, if you believe in these, you can be a reflection of that without being a projection of that. For me, as a liberal, I can be a reflection of the principles. I can be tolerant. I can be open-minded. I can be open to all different ethnicities and sexual orientations. And I can be open to other people's ideas, including conservative ones. Mm-hmm. And I can be a reflection of that. But to project it creates a point of contention. Right. It creates a tension.
Yeah.
That's unnecessary when we're projecting. When anybody's projecting anything, like if I'm projecting like my repressed issues with my dad, right? Like I'm projecting that onto you. That's negative as well. But if I have these liberal ideas and I want to liberal them at you, that's not healthy either. But I could be a reflection of like my values through my actions, through my behaviors, through the way I raise my children, through the way I treat others. And I can be conservative, or I can be liberal, or I can be libertarian and live it. It's like being in a 12-step program.
Yes.
It's not telling people to be sober. It's living in a way that makes people ask, what are you doing? Mm-hmm. What are you doing that's making you like this? Mm-hmm. How are you doing that? Attraction rather than promotion.
Absolutely. And I feel like when I'm acting from my highest self, then that's the person that I strive to be. And I laugh because when I was in college, I used to call myself a Republicrat because I shared both values. I didn't want to pigeonhole myself. Yes, I vote for one particular party, or I'm registered to vote with one particular party, but I'm finding that as I'm putting everything on the table, I think I might be more of a moderate.
Yeah.
Most
people are.
And my boyfriend, God, I've just learned a lot from him, and it just makes me feel like, you know what? We can have conversations that are uncomfortable, but those conversations are never, even if we don't agree, they're never going to affect our relationship. And that's why I love that. And I have that with other friends, but I've had other people completely cut me off because they only know one thing about me, but they don't know my values. Like I want to be judged on the content of my character and my actions, not by one social media post. Yeah. But then again, my part in that was the fact that I posted it when somebody, and not being offended when somebody says, get back in the gym. You know, you belong in the gym. So not talking about politics, but that's just.
Since you said gym, let's segue there. How are we doing on time, Matt? 55? Okay.
Are we over time?
No, we're gonna have to wrap up. But let's talk.
I can come back and talk fitness with you another time.
No.
So I'll do it real quickly. Like, do we have 2 minutes?
Yeah, we have more than 2 minutes.
Oh, okay. I can do this fast. So 2016, I was in a drug-induced psychosis. I thought
Nice.
the FBI was coming to my house. I was living with that guy that I was with for 7 years.
Sick.
And that was probably my worst bottom, because I came to and he didn't want to have anything to do with me. So we were living together. So I was losing the house, losing the relationship. And then I had talked to my boss at like 2 a.m. So I was pretty sure I was getting fired too, all in one moment. I never wanted to go to treatment because I felt like it was adult daycare, and I'm like above that, right?
Yeah, that's what it is. It's adult daycare.
Yeah, I'm in a psychosis, but I'm like
but I got
poo-pooing
standards.
I got standards. So I ended up going to treatment for 30 days, and I didn't want to go, but I was scared. I feel like my biggest fear was just having to get to know myself, and I wasn't ready. I just wasn't ready, but I knew I didn't have a choice. So I went, but I finally felt safe for the first time in 7 years. Yeah. I finally felt like I could feel, and I didn't have to be worried about the threat of him or who I am in that relationship, and not have any other responsibilities, which I've never not had responsibilities. And as soon as I saw the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous, I was like, I got it. I have to get this. I have to get this. And I got so lucky because one of my therapists, like to this day, who is one of my greatest spiritual guides, had 7 years. And so even though it wasn't an AA rehab, like that's what we spoke. And, page 69 is literally what has changed my life, because it's, and he would always read that with me. Perhaps there's a better way. We think so. For now, we're on a different basis, a basis of trusting and relying upon God. We are here to play the role he assigns, not what I assigned. And once I put it into that perspective, I was like, okay, I get it. I have to build the spiritual path. So I jumped back into AA, and at the same time, I left treatment and I went back to the relationship, right? Because I'm thinking, okay, well, of course this is going to work out because I'm sober again. I'm doing like this outpatient program. So like I'm super accountable and I'm going to meetings all the time. And now I have to go to the gym, right? Because that's what we do. And that's what I did. But this time I was like, I want to find a way to train like I've never trained before. Like I've always been an athlete. I know how to work out at the gym, but I really wanted to master all the lifts, barbell lifts. So that's what I did. I hired a digital coach who was in Miami, and I showed my ex. I'm like, look at this. Like, this is a girl I'm going to work with. And he's like, you think you can get abs like that? And in that moment, I was like, watch me. And so that's all I did. All I did was AA, my outpatient program, and I'd work out. And I was teaching myself how to train properly as I went. And as I did it, it was funny because there were people that I didn't know in the rooms, but in 3 months I had transformed like crazy. And now all of a sudden people are talking to me and they think I'm like this new person. I'm like, I've been sitting in the back this whole time. Yeah. I just didn't have like any muscle or arms or like whatever. And so it was hilarious. And I don't know why I had to throw that in there, but I did. And I felt like seen for the first time. But the problem, which I can say now looking back on it, is when people tell me with really no spiritual substance at all that I look good, I'm doing well, they want what I have in the fitness world, that starts pumping up the ego. And it's a really dangerous place for me, really dangerous place. But I was so excited about like what I had created that I built my own program and digital platform. And I wanted to be a fitness model, and I didn't want to be a personal trainer yet. I just wanted to focus on building the digital side because I used to work in digital marketing. I was there for 10 years. So to answer that question you asked like probably 30 minutes ago, I was in digital marketing. So I pretty much just used everything that I knew, created this platform, and I think it's amazing. And if people go through the entire program, they will have results. It's just built that way, but it takes consistency and it takes dedication and it takes accountability. That's just all it is. And I So I built that. And then, by the way, that November, I left the guy. I finally started over. I took the plunge and I just relied on women in the program I didn't make any decisions. I just was like, okay, what do I do next? What do I do next? And that was the most freeing moment, because after I left the guy, I started my business. Like, I've always wanted to have my own business, and I started my fitness business, but I just did it backwards, which I do everything backwards. So I did the digital platform. I was starting my social media because I knew from coming from marketing that, you got to build content. So even though I was a nobody, I was building content, and I would do videos and posts. But like I was telling you earlier, my favorite part of the whole thing was being able to express through writing. And I'll get to that on the next podcast, because you're going to have me back so I can talk about the book that I'm working on right now. So, I
love you.
Love you. And fast forward. So I'm in the rooms, right? And there were people coming up to me saying, hey, I've been seeing your posts. Do you train? And I said, well, I'm not a certified personal trainer, but I can take you through what worked for me. And, so I started taking some of my sober friends through, and I realized that's really where my passion lies, is to be able to take somebody who is coming off of like a life of drugs and alcohol and literally doesn't have an inner strength or even physical strength, has no idea where to go. And I can just kind of like give pointers, and we have this understanding because we both come from the same place. And alcoholics are all in. Drug addicts are usually all in. They're the best clients. They'll do whatever it takes. Yeah. And so I started, and I would train people for free because they were helping me shape my business. And so that's how I built my fitness business. And then I went into a gym in Studio City. It was this little boutique gym. And I just wanted to know if that's really what I wanted to do, is be in a gym. So the only job I can get was like the desk 2 days a week. And I was there, and I would train there every single day. And then finally the general manager came up to me. He's like, we really like what you're doing. Will you teach a class? And I was like, sure. So I created this. He's like, we want to like a lower body and ass class. And I'm like, okay, BootyCamp. And so I created this class called BootyCamp, and oh my God, it was so much fun. I want to start teaching it again, because it was all about the music, and it was just all about the togetherness and doing shit that worked. Like, I did lower body and core, and who doesn't want to train that, right? So then I was doing that, and then I had people from the class asking me to train them, and that's just how it worked. And I built this sweet little business, and the only problem with it is that the business that I built, because of Alcoholics Anonymous and using all the principles, I didn't have time for meetings anymore. I never called my sponsor. I was of service to nobody. I was of service to me, because I felt like, well, AA got me here, and I need to put all my eggs in one basket. Like, this is the bread and butter. Like, nobody's supporting me. I'm supporting me. So I got so far away of AA. I mean, I know now. I mean, I should have known then, but I definitely know now that it's not even so much about the meetings, but it's just having that spiritual, it's step 11. We sought through prayer and meditation to improve our conscious contact with God. I didn't have a conscious contact with God. I didn't have spiritual readings. I didn't have anything. So forget just the meetings. Like, I was now back to who I used to be. And unfortunately, because of that, I relapsed and lost my baby. I lost everything that I had built. And it was probably one of the most gut-wrenching experiences. I was so embarrassed. And in the meantime, like, my coworker and one of my closest friends who was struggling with the same stuff too, ended up dying. And I just couldn't hold it together. But because I knew and RIP Derek, like, that one really cut deep. And, but I had to go through that experience. I had to see with my own eyes that, like, what I was doing had killed him, and it was about to kill me. And so I got sober again, and my best friend had moved to San Diego. He, oh, do I need to wrap it up?
No, I'm stretching.
Okay. My my best friend had moved to San Diego. This is all taking place in LA, by the way. I was in LA for 20 years. I fucking love LA. I never thought I would leave, but this is what God does for me. So he had moved to San Diego because he was in a treatment center, and he asked me to give him a 30-day chip. And it was also his 30th birthday. And I was like, but I'm not even sober. He's like, that's okay. Just come give me my chip. And I drove down to San Diego and I gave him his chip. And in that meeting, it was my day one. And I was like, okay, God, I get it. And I was looking around and I'm like, this is not my life. You know, I had no quality of life. My life was balls to the wall. I would wake up at 4 a.m. and I would do my writing for all my social media, and I'd figure out my posts, and then I would go to the gym and start training my clients, or I would teach a class and then I would train my clients, and then I would come home and I would train me, or I would go down to the West Side and meet with other influencers to cross market. And like, it was all day long, and I would sleep for maybe a few hours in between. And that was it. But I felt like that's what I have to do. Like I started my own business. This is when you put all the work in. But for an alcoholic like me, that's fine. Hustle, but hustle with humility and hustle with a spiritual program, you know? And that's what I feel like I have today. My life looks so much different. I'm so grateful to be in San Diego. I'm so grateful for all the pain and all the lessons, because I had to be reminded of the same lesson over and over and over until I got it right. And I feel like this time I've gotten it right, you know, and it's a choice every day. Like I wake up in the morning and I have my own like spiritual thing, you know, where we pick a card, and I've got some other readings. And I, even in this sobriety that I'm in right now, like I got really stagnant, spiritually stagnant. And I never want to be spiritually rusty or spiritually stagnant. I just always want to be a spiritual student in somehow, some way. So in the morning, I decided that I want to write the highlights of everything that I'm reading, because I'm not the kind of I don't have the attention span to read a bunch of shit and then remember exactly what it said. I can take some like buzzwords, but I really want to know what I'm reading. I want to take the card with me throughout the day, and I want to revert back to it. Or if I'm thinking on something, I just want it there with me. I want this spiritual journey to be like the whole 24 hours and not just the little piece of time in the morning. And it also gives me something to share about in meetings. You know, this is what I talked about in my 11th step. Like if a lead like inspires me, I'll be like, me too, dude. Like this is what I read. And I wake up now every morning, and my spiritual journey is for my soul, like coffee is or stimulants are to my blood and my brain. You know, they go hand in hand. I don't do my day without it. And some days it might be a half an hour, but other days it's an hour, and it's just whatever, you know, I just get myself to a place where I can hear God. That's it. And whatever I'm reading that sticks out the most, that's the highlight. I feel like that's what God wanted me to read that day. That's what God's showing me. And my idea of God is a spirit. It is an eternal spirit. It's still in my mind's eye is that bright ball I had as a little girl. And I am so awakened today. I see signs all the time. Like this morning, I'm walking Beckham, and I noticed like something coming to my right-hand side, and I turn around and it's a dove flying stationary, just like until our eyes connected. And then it flew up on this wire above me and perched. And I was like, wow, that was spiritual. Like that was cool. And then I started thinking, do I have any passed over loved ones that love doves? And then I thought, you know what? No, it's just a sign from God that I'm on the right path. It doesn't need to be dissected any more than that. It doesn't need to be, aunt, whoever,
Aunt Shirley.
Visiting. Like this is just, it's just such a beautiful, like heavenly sign. Jayna, you're on the right path. You're doing the right thing. And so I'm open to stuff like that. I believe that our time here on earth we all have a spirit, but this is materialized spirit. This is the physical. This is temporary. It's been proven. None of us are getting out of here alive. But our time here, we're supposed to learn something. One of my favorite lyrics or quotes is from Nipsey Hussle. He says, "Find your purpose or you're wasting air." That is what I try to do on a daily basis. It's just, if I have to do 150 different jobs to find where I'm supposed to be, then that's what I'm doing. And I feel like that's where I'm at today. Fitness is still a huge part of my life. I took a huge step back because my identity was all aesthetics and I had to lose it. I had to lose it to find where I'm supposed to be again. And so now my health and fitness is all related to my spirit. I feel like if I'm keeping my body healthy, it keeps my spirit healthy. And now I don't go into the gym to try to, do a specific amount of reps or do lift a certain amount of weight. Now, because to be honest with you, to work out for aesthetics is so boring and lame to me that I won't even go to the gym if that's my motivation.
Me too.
I won't even do it. I won't even do it. So today I found that if I focus more on the tempo of how I'm doing a lift, then that's my goal. I want to keep the same tempo for 8 reps or 12 reps or 15 reps. And that's pretty much.
We have to wrap up.
Oh my God. I'm so sorry. I thought I wasn't going to have anything to say.
Thank you so much. Plug your platform. Plug you have your website?
Yeah. So my website's JaynaRylee.com.
Plug your Instagram.
My Instagram is Jayna_Rylee. And you can find me on Facebook. I have a page, and you can find me on Twitter, but you'll get a lot of politics on Twitter. But that was like the one network I felt like I could do that on.
And we'll
also, I'm on YouTube.
Oh, what's your YouTube channel?
Jayna Rylee.
There you go.
Yeah.
She's everywhere. Thank you so much. We're going to do it again. I want to hear about the book.
Okay.
All right. Thank you
so much.
Bye-bye.